Hello, everyone. We are in Chapter 7 of Unit 2. We have covered crimes in Chapter 5, intentional torts in Chapter 6, and now we're going to talk about negligence and strict liability, which are both two other types of torts. Remember, criminal law and civil law are two different things, so crimes under criminal, intentional torts, and negligence and strict liability are all torts which fall under civil law, okay? So let's talk about the difference of intentional torts and negligence. I'm going to use an example. If I am driving and I am decide that either by joking around or I'm angry with you, I'm going to tap you with my car, that is an intentional tort because I'm intending to do something, right? Negligence, on the other hand, is that I am negligent. I made because I didn't do something, or maybe I did something that was not reasonable. So in that case, it would be, let's say I hit you with my car, but I had no intention whatsoever. I just wasn't paying attention. Okay, so those are the differences between those. So when we talk about negligence, we're going to talk about three elements. We're going to talk about a duty of care, meaning everybody, even you, even me, we owe each other this duty of care. It's just something we owe them. And you know that you do, but you didn't really know that's what it was, okay? And it is, in a second, we're going to talk about it is basically to act like a reasonable person towards others. And if you don't act like a reasonable person and you breach that duty, then you possibly could be negligent. The last element, though, is you have to cause some kind of injury. Okay, so duty, breach, and injury are what we call our elements. So write this down as one of your points, okay, for quiz 2. The elements of negligence are duty, comma, breach, comma, and causation. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about duty. And as I said before, um, duty is that, sorry, no way. Each person must act as a reasonable person or ordinary prudence would act under the same or similar circumstances. So what that means is we need to look around us and say, if I wasn't paying attention and I was texting on my phone, or if I ran through a red light, a reasonable person of ordinary prudence under my same situation would not do that. And so that would be a breach of duty because my duty is to not run through red lights. My duty is not to be distracted by my cell phone while I'm driving. There are special duties that occupations have. Doctors have to act as a reasonable doctor of ordinary prudence would act under the same or similar circumstances. That is their duty. They have a duty to make sure they take care of their patients, and they do so in a reasonable manner. So how do we know if the defendant owed the plaintiff a duty in the first place? One of the things we have to look at is the risk of foreseeability, meaning I owe everyone that it's foreseeable I could harm them, a duty not to harm them, right? So foreseeability is one thing that you look at. And we're going to see this also when we talk about breach of duty and what a breach of duty is, okay? So one of the things you need to know is that the difference between landowners and what duties they owe the people that are on their land. A trespasser, obviously, is a common term. It's an uninvited person, and they're not to be on your property. And basically, the only duty I owe them is I can't inflict harm to this trespasser, right? I can't. My duty is not to inflict harm. Now, we do have the castle laws where you can protect your own castle, but remember, we're talking also about civil litigation. Castle laws protect you criminally, okay? So you really need to make sure that you do not harm them. You can't set like traps for them to see if they can get hurt or not if they're on your property. The exception to not basically your duty just being a minimum is that there's an attractive nuisance and it's meant to protect curious children. So if you have a pool or you have a trampoline in your backyard, you need to take reasonable steps to make sure that A child trespasser would not be harmed, and that's why a lot of places require fences and things of that nature. Licensee is a person who you invite on the property to visit the property, and that would be just a visitor. And what you need to do is, if you have things that may not be obvious, and if they are hazards, you should alert them. So, for example, I have guests at my house. If there is a pothole in my yard that's hard to see, I need to let people know of that. I need to make them aware of that. Okay. Invitee is the highest level, and that's someone who is there for business purposes, for our sake, and you have to warn them of any potential dangers. And that's why you're going to see these signs that there's a wet floor when you go to stores, because they have to warn you about any potential risks. Okay, so remember, landowners have a certain specific classified based on what type of person is on your land. Okay, and that is pretty much what duty is in a nutshell. The next thing you're going to do is do your case brief. Your case brief talks about the duty of a business owner, and then we will have the next lecture, which is what happens, or not what happens if, but how is there a breach of duty. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me.